So what happened on that night of July 5th, 2011? Kelly Thomas was hanging out at one of his usual spots in Fullerton. Officer Manuel Ramos contacted Kelly and started asking him some questions. This is routine for both Kelly Thomas and Manuel Ramos. Yet within the space of about 30 minutes, Kelly Thomas would be laying on the street in a pool of his own blood, unconscious and dying. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my opportunity to make an opening statement, as the judge just indicated. And I'm here with Senior Assistant Jim Tanizaki and a Senior Trial Attorney, Keith Bogardus. And we'll represent the people in this case. The people of the state of California versus Manuel Ramos and Jay Cicinelli. An opening statement is not an opportunity to discuss the law. So I won't be discussing any legal definitions. I won't be discussing the definitions, say, of second-degree murder or implied malice or manslaughter. The judge will instruct you about all of those definitions, or instruct you about the law at the end of the trial, and all those definitions will be included then. So opening statements are an opportunity for the attorneys to give you an idea, or try to tell you where we think that the evidence will go, so that when it does come into the trial, it's in context. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, to thank you for your service on this case. We all very much appreciate your being here, taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. And this is an important case. It's an important case. And by the decisions that you make in this case, you'll be speaking as the voice and the conscience of this community. So, ladies and gentlemen,
hang on, we got an objection. Overruled.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show that Officers Ramos and Cicinelli were experienced, well-trained police officers who did not conduct themselves as the trained professional police officers that they were supposed to be. Their conduct on this night was a major departure from legitimate police work. In their callous treatment of Kelly Thomas, they crossed the boundaries of legitimate police work and broke the law against unlawfully killing a human being. The evidence will show that Officer Ramos, the first officer to make contact with Kelly Thomas, made a series of choices that night that needlessly escalated this routine encounter into a deadly beating. He gratuitously initiated force against Kelly Thomas in that it was unwarranted and unreasonable. And Corporal Cicinelli recklessly and repeatedly beat Kelly Thomas in the face and head with his taser. Now, this was constructed of hard, impact-resistant plastic material. And these heavy blows to the face that were inflicted by Corporal Cicinelli played an important role in the killing of Kelly Thomas. Then Corporal Cicinelli used the entire heavy weight of his body to press Kelly Thomas into the pavement, restricting his ability to breathe, which was also a significant part in the death of Kelly Thomas. You'll see that Kelly Thomas was reticent, unhappy about encountering Ramos. He was not entirely cooperative in the sense that he didn't give Ramos all the direct answers to all of the various questions that he was asking. But he was generally compliant. And as you watch the video of this event, you'll see that Kelly Thomas was manageable. He posed no threat of harm at all, either to the officers or to anyone else. His behavior wasn't the best, but it was not threatening. Oh, the defense will bring out negative evidence about some of Kelly Thomas's past conduct. They're going to drag out his 1995 conviction of assault with a deadly weapon, as well as his admission of using drugs during that time in his life. Kelly's mother, Kathy Thomas, got a restraining order against Kelly at one point. She'll explain that this was an attempt to try to get help for Kelly. But you'll hear about an incident that she described in her declaration in support of the restraining order, where Kelly held his hand on her throat during an argument. On a few occasions, Kelly reacted badly when he was told by somebody to leave one place or another. One of those times resulted in him being charged with misdemeanor assault and battery. But he was never threatening or violent toward the police. And on the night of July 5th, 2011, he posed no threat at all to the police or to anyone else. And that's the night that you're here to judge. Kelly Thomas was a young man. His red hair and full beard were long and disheveled. His clothing was unkempt. He was about 5 feet 9 inches tall, thin build. He was easily recognizable as homeless, transient. He was very clearly among the most vulnerable of people in our society. He mostly hung out in the Fullerton area. He slept in alleys, maybe in dumpsters, maybe using cardboard boxes for covers. His conversations seemed to go in and out, sometimes making sense and sometimes not. Life was clearly a daily struggle for Kelly Thomas. Manuel Ramos was a patrol officer for the Fullerton Police Department. He had 10 years of experience. He was healthy, well-nourished, strong, fully trained, and fully equipped to do his job, to serve and protect. His authority was very clear and conspicuous for all to see. He had the black and white car with the lights and siren, the uniform, the badge, and he was also equipped to use force if necessary. He had a gun, a police baton, a bulletproof vest, handcuffs, and other equipment as well. And he also knew very well that he was not alone. Based upon his training and experience, he knew that if he made an emergency call for help, other police officers would rush to his aid. They would be there to assist in a heartbeat. The Fullerton Police Department was only about a minute away from the scene where Kelly was killed. In short, Officer Ramos was entrusted with the full authority and power of our government to do his job of keeping the peace in the city of Fullerton. And Jay Cicinelli, he held the rank of corporal for the Fullerton Police Department. He had 9 years of experience with the department. He too was healthy, well-nourished, strong, fully trained, fully equipped to do his job, to serve and protect. He was also entrusted with the full authority and power of our government. So with this awesome power and the ability to use force and the authority to make arrests come limitations. Our police officers have extensive training and they're required to act within the law. There'll be testimony regarding the amount of force an officer may properly use to force compliance with his or her lawful orders. Of course, it's recognized that during the course of police work, it becomes necessary to use force at times, reasonable force. To properly perform their duties, officers are vested with the authority to use reasonable force. But the force must be necessary and reasonable, or else it's excessive. In this case, the evidence will show that Officer Ramos's conduct fell well below the standard of reasonableness, which is required of police officers, and this happened time and time again during the course of this encounter. And Corporal Cicinelli also violated this standard in his use of unnecessary, unreasonable, and excessive force. Defendant Ramos didn't like Kelly much. Actually, he didn't like him at all. We don't know the actual number of times that Kelly and Ramos crossed paths during the couple of years before this final encounter when Kelly was killed. But their meetings were numerous and not pleasant. These meetings tended to consist of Ramos approaching Kelly and telling him to get moving. He'd say such things as, "People don't want you here. We don't want you hanging around here. Why don't you go sleep over there?" pointing to Placentia. "Pick up your stuff and get out of here. Don't fold it. I don't have time for that. Ball it up in a ball and take it. Get it out of here." At one point in July of 2009, when they were having one of these meetings, Ramos said to Kelly Thomas, "Have you ever been hit with one of these things?" Apparently referring to his police baton. Kelly responded, "Yeah." Ramos said, "How did it feel?" Kelly said, "It hurt." One time when Ramos was kicking Kelly out of an area, he said in a low voice to a bystander that Kelly was not all there mentally. He went on to say, "There's nothing physically wrong with him, just mentally wrong." On another occasion in August of 2010, a citizen was concerned about Kelly sleeping behind a building by an electrical box. He pointed Kelly out to Officer Ramos as the person who'd been sleeping there. Ramos told Kelly to leave, and he warned him that if he didn't leave, next time he sees him, he's going to jail. Then he asked Kelly if he understood what he had just said, and Kelly replied, yeah, that he did understand. Ramos then told Kelly to repeat what Ramos had just said. Kelly replied, "No." Ramos said, "No? What don't you understand?" Kelly said, "I don't know." Ramos said, "What do you mean you don't know?" Kelly said, "Well, I don't know." Ramos said, "What do you mean you don't know? You speak English?" Kelly said, "Yeah." Ramos said, "Well, then why don't you understand me? It's pretty simple." But when Kelly wanted to go back to where he had been sleeping to retrieve his belongings, Ramos said they'd already been thrown away. Kelly said he wanted to go look. He explained that he needed his shirt and he wanted to smoke. But Ramos repeated, "There's nothing there for you. It's already been thrown away." Ramos didn't let Kelly go look for his things, not even his shirt. In fact, when he wound up telling Kelly to leave and Kelly wanted to go back that way, he wouldn't even let him go in that direction. He had to go a different direction. So well before the incident that happened on July 5th, 2011, Ramos's bullyish attitude and conduct toward Kelly Thomas were well established. And they fell well below the standards of conduct that are expected of police officers, especially in their official contacts with the public. So getting to the evening of July 5th, 2011, a few minutes before 8:30 p.m., a call came into the Fullerton Police Department saying there was someone in a parking lot who appeared to be trying car doors. Ramos was the first on the scene. His job was to investigate a question of car tampering. He contacted Kelly, who fit the description of the person. He was shirtless with a backpack on his back. Officer Wolf arrived in a separate car within a very short time to investigate the same call. The location is the area of the Fullerton Transportation Center in the city of Fullerton. And let me approach, Your Honor. Thank you. And you can see this is a part of the city of Fullerton that's a busy area. And you can see the intersection here, Harbor Boulevard and Commonwealth. And we have an indication as to the location of the incident here. And this is the area of the transportation, the Fullerton transportation area. So you can see there's a train station below here, and the bus depot up here, and here's a bus dock where the buses stop. And this is the place where the incident occurred. On a summer night, about 8:30 p.m. like this, July 5th on a summer night, this is the spaghetti factory here, and there's some other restaurants and establishments in the area. So there are going to be people walking back and forth enjoying the accommodations there. And so other people may be getting on the bus, going here and there. The Fullerton Police Department is right up here. So you can see how close it is. The proximity of the Fullerton Police Department, it's a drive, it might be a minute away. What is it, 3 blocks? It's close. A little closer up aerial photo. By the way, the north is to the top of these in this photo. And you can see the incident location here in red. The train depot, the bus depot. This is indicated bus depot. It's also, this is where the buses stop. Now the slide bar is right up here on the upper left of this aerial photo. And the slide bar is the place or the establishment where the call came from to say that there was somebody in the parking lot, maybe trying car doors or car door handles. Now you can see the proximity of the slide bar just a little ways from the place where the incident occurred. Maybe that'll balance. Also, police officers have digital audio recorders that they wear on their belts, and they refer to those as DARs. The digital audio recorders can record conversations and other sounds that take place during whenever there's something going on, and so you'll be hearing that. But let me back up here one. One thing to let you know is that there's a surveillance camera right up here on a pole, and it looks out over this general area. And that surveillance camera picked up the things that took place here. They picked up this incident. Without that, we wouldn't have a good record of this whole thing. So the camera is silent. It doesn't have any sound to it. But the digital audio recorders, or the DARs, that the police officers wear on their belts does record the conversation and the other sounds. So what we have is the video from the camera has been synchronized with the digital audio recorder. So you can see the incident and hear the things that are taking place at the time. Now, some parts of this beating that took place go out of view of the camera for a while, and this is just right after Ramos and officers Ramos and Wolf assault Kelly with their batons. But while it's out of view of the camera, you'll be able to hear everything. And overall, you'll be able to see and hear quite enough to understand very well what took place here. Of course, the videos will be presented as evidence during the trial, and also you'll have it to review further during your deliberations if you find that to be necessary. You'll be able to see by looking at the video that this started as a routine matter between the police, officers Ramos and Wolf, and a homeless person, Kelly Thomas. But it didn't proceed routinely as it should have. Instead, this entire incident was characterized by example after example of substandard police conduct, clear violations of police policy, causing this routine matter to escalate into violence. And that violence was such that it resulted in such severe trauma to Kelly Thomas that it caused his death. Before going any further in describing the incident, I'd like to apologize briefly for some of the language that I'll be quoting, because I hope everybody understands, but for the purpose of the trial, we have to have the evidence reflect what actually happened. So I hope everyone understands that. But when the video evidence is played, you'll see that as the encounter began, again, I repeat, it appeared to be just another meeting, a routine meeting between Manuel Ramos and Kelly Thomas. Ramos was twirling his baton as he made contact with Kelly, and Kelly engaged in some verbal banter with Ramos. Ramos asked Kelly if he was trying to open car door handles. And Kelly, who had in the past been challenged by Ramos about his ability to understand English, said, "I don't speak English, dude." He claimed not to speak English, of course, in English. So they went back and forth for a while until Kelly said, I don't know, I mean, what do you want to know? And rather than using this opportunity to get to the business of conducting a professional interview into what he was there to investigate, Ramos said, I want to know what kind of language you speak. Which language do you speak? Kelly responded, all kinds of languages. Ramos said, well then name one, give me one. And Ramos continued the banter until Wolf came into the picture. Then when Wolf comes into the picture, he joins in with, well, I speak Mongolian, Cambodian, and then pretty soon Wolf elicited from Kelly that Kelly slept in trash cans in the Fullerton area. Then he asked Kelly if he'd like to go to sleep pretty soon. And Kelly said, yeah, he would. At one point, Kelly said, seems like every day we have to talk to you about something. Do you enjoy it? Kelly replied, Ramos said that. Did I say Kelly? At one point, Ramos said, it seems like every day we have to talk to you about something. Do you enjoy it? And Kelly responded, oh yeah, it's great, dude. I love bumping into you every day, dude. Ramos then said, really? Kelly responded, it's the greatest. Soon Kelly asked again what they wanted to know. Then Ramos asked again whether Kelly was trying car doors. Kelly said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then Ramos, claiming not to know what that means, said that he has to have a yes or no answer. Kelly said, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not getting into any cars or anything like that. Then they banter about that a little more until Kelly again said, I don't know what you're talking about. Then there was banter about Kelly's name until Ramos said, Kelly Thomas. Is your real name Kelly Thomas? Kelly said, yeah. Ramos said, Kelly Thomas? Kelly said, yeah. Then the police, within a few seconds, seemed to lose track of Kelly's name again. Kelly said, you know, I'm not looking at any car doors. I mean, what's the problem? Ramos then said the problem was that he couldn't confirm who Kelly was. He said he could take him to jail for suspicion of burglary. And the banter went on. Kelly didn't want to tell him his name again, and Ramos threatened to take him to jail over it. Ramos said he'd forgotten Kelly's name. Kelly said he forgot it too. And they went back and forth. When the officers asked about the backpack that Kelly had been wearing, Kelly told him to go ahead and search it. Gave him the backpack. So Wolf took the backpack. Ramos then told Kelly to sit on a little brick curb there while Wolf went to the rear of his patrol vehicle to search the backpack. Wolf was only a few feet away at the time, but he was out of view of the camera while he was looking through the backpack. Kelly didn't want to sit on the little curb, and so he didn't comply right away. But then he did comply by having a seat there. Ramos then, at that point, Ramos commenced to give a series of instructions to Kelly about how to sit. He told him, feet out in front of you, hands on your knees, ankles crossed, feet out in front of you. And they kind of went, Kelly would move from one direction to another, and he'd say, no, feet out in front, ankles crossed, hands on your knees. And Kelly seemed to have difficulty understanding that and getting into that position. But he did get into that position that he was required to by Officer Ramos, but then only for a short time. As the conversation continued, Kelly remained seated, but not really in the position that he was told to sit by Ramos. So for the next few minutes, and you can see here, well, for the next few minutes, while Kelly was seated, but not as Ramos told him to be, Officer Ramos was very lax about the orders that he had given. Now and then he might say something like, feet out in front of you. During this time where Ramos was relaxed like this, he told Kelly all he wanted to do was figure out his name. Another person was walking by, and he and Ramos had a friendly chat. So you can see in the picture, this is taken from the video, of course, but you can see Officer Ramos here, and he's just in a relaxed state. He's just kind of looking out, not even paying all that much attention at this point. Kelly is seated here on this little brick curb, but he's got his legs out in front of him, but he doesn't have hands on his knees or anything. And there's somebody else who was a passerby, basically, said a few things to Officer Ramos, and they had a little chat about just some past thing about this person just getting out of the hospital, out of a treatment center or something of that nature. So as the time went by, they waited in that position with Kelly seated on the brick curb. Kelly volunteered to be taken to jail. And here's what he said. He said, "Take me to jail, dude. Just get it over with. Please, please, please. Can we just go, please?" And you can see he puts his hands up, surrendering to be cuffed, to be taken to jail. So how does Ramos reply? "I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet." So it's so clear, it's completely clear that Ramos had no concerns about Kelly representing any sort of a threat to the officers, or to anyone else for that matter. He was casual about the entire matter. He just continued the banter with Kelly while he waited to find out what Wolf might get from the backpack. At one point, Ramos said, "Again, all I need to know is your name and your birthday, and you can be on your way." This was about 13 minutes into this detention. About 13 minutes when that was said. And other than a few questions to Kelly about trying car door handles, there hadn't been any real investigation about the alleged car tampering. None, really. Although the slide bar very close by, neither officer made any contact at all to contact or made any attempt at all to contact the complaining party. No attempt to get a statement about what she had seen in the parking lot, what she'd seen happening there, where she was, where was she located in the parking lot, which cars did she see being touched, if any, or tampered with. They did not even have the complaining party verify that Kelly Thomas was in fact the person that she had seen in the parking lot. After a few minutes, Ramos went to Wolf's vehicle, and he and Wolf discussed the contents of the backpack at that point, just for a little bit. It contained mail that appeared to belong to an attorney and not to Kelly. Wolf suggested checking to see if the attorney was the victim of theft. Ramos then said, in a low voice, "Fucking take him for $496. Okay, $496 is Penal Code section for receiving stolen property. Then he muttered, "Get a call on him every night." Wolf called dispatch to see what he might find out about this mail. But Ramos did not wait. There was a change at this point, a significant change for the worse. This was the turning point where Ramos went from casual to malicious. From this point forward, Ramos treated Kelly with outright malice. He re-engaged Kelly, but this time with a menacing attitude. He started barking out commands. "Feet out in front of you, feet out in front of you. I'm tired of fucking around. I'm not going to be nice anymore. I try to be nice." Kelly was seated on that small brick curb with his feet out. Ramos stood over him in this menacing manner, continuing to bark out these orders, and he made a show of putting on these latex gloves right in front of Kelly's face. You can see that he made sure that Kelly is seeing him put the latex gloves on. He's making a show out of it, not some kind of a discreet way to just put these gloves on. Back to the back of that car for a second. When Ramos left Wolf after their discussion of the backpack, and he turned his attention to Kelly, he didn't have any questions for Kelly. He didn't ask any questions about the backpack, anything about the contents of the backpack. Didn't tell Kelly anything about possible possession of stolen property. No discussion of that at all. He made it very clear that he had no patience for Kelly whatsoever. And he just got right to the business of putting on those gloves. By the way, at this point, this car tampering thing seems to be a thing of the past. There's no discussion about that or anything. That's over. Then he approached Kelly more closely than before. Kelly was still sitting in the same position. Actually got up and put his hands closer to his knees, more on his knees, looking completely compliant at this point. Ramos took this menacing posture over Kelly. He put his gloved fist in Kelly's face. You can see him right there. He put his gloved fist right in front of Kelly's face. And he said, "Now you see my fist?" And I want to read from the transcript at this point, just very short. And Ramos holding his fist right in Kelly's face. "Now you see my fist?" Thomas, "Yeah, what about him?" Ramos, "They're getting ready to fuck you up." Thomas, "Start punching, dude." Ramos, "You don't fucking start listening." Thomas, "It sucks." Ramos, "Yeah. Put your fucking hands on your knees." In this very short time, there's a very short time period now before Ramos actually puts his hands on Kelly. But in that short time, Ramos does not say anything to Kelly about arresting him for possession of stolen property or even that he was taking Kelly into custody. He didn't give Kelly any indication whatsoever that what was about to happen was legitimate police work. No. He just commanded him to sit in this very vulnerable position. And without even telling Kelly to stand, he started pulling on Kelly's upper arm, like to force him into some different position. So when Ramos began yanking on Kelly's arm, Kelly stood and began stepping backwards, away from Ramos. Ramos yelled, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." Now take a look at that picture. Ramos is yelling, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." And he's holding this baton in up high, two hands in striking position. And at the same time, Officer Wolf is running towards Kelly from the back of the car. He's running towards him. And he's got his baton out too in striking position. So both of these officers are running right at Kelly with their batons out, yelling, "Get on the ground." You'll see from the video, you'll see for yourself, Kelly was scared. And I mean, he was just overwhelmed with abject and deep fear at this point. Wolf struck the first blow, then Ramos. Kelly ran as fast as he could, but to no avail. They cut him off and took him down. As you watch the video, you'll be unable to see the violence that was taking place just for a short time. That's because they went out of view of the camera. But you can hear very clearly. And you'll hear scuffling. You'll hear Kelly saying, "Ouch, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And he repeated many times, just over and over again in this desperate crying voice, that he was sorry. Like a young boy begging for the punishment to stop. The two officers continued to press in on Kelly while ordering him to put his hands behind his back. Kelly hollered, "Okay, okay," but he couldn't comply. When they came back into view of the camera, Kelly was on the ground in this very awkward position with the weight of the officers on him, and they were pulling and pushing him and dragging him on the pavement. And the way it looks and sounds, It just doesn't seem like Kelly was at all able to comply with the officer's demands from the position that he was in. And he cried out, "Okay, I can't, dude." And Ramos commanded, "Hands behind your back." Kelly cried, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I can't breathe. I can't breathe, dude." Then Kelly repeated over and over again that he couldn't breathe. Ramos and Wolf continued to bear down on Kelly, pummeling him with knees, elbows, forearms, dragging him on the street. They continued to give him orders. While he was in this terrible state of panic, they told him to relax his hand. You can hear Kelly, "Okay, here, dude, please. I can't breathe, man." And he just repeated that over and over again. He repeated he was sorry. I don't know how many times he said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Then Corporal Cicinelli arrived on the scene. And he looked things over and started telling Kelly to stop resisting. Kelly started calling for his dad. "Please, Dad. Dad, help me." Cicinelli had his taser out and said, "Hang on, do you want a taser?" Kelly said, "Seriously, don't. No, please. Ow!" And you can hear him scream as the electricity is surging through his body. And you'll hear the loud zapping sound of the taser as Cicinelli tasers him again, and then again. Obviously, he's just inflicting the most severe pain. Kelly appeared to be very much unable to do whatever it was that the police officers were demanding of him at this point. So at this time, Corporal J. Cicinelli made an important choice. He hesitated for a moment. There were 3 other officers there at this point. Officer Hampton had arrived as further backup within a few seconds of Cicinelli. Kelly was being held down, dragged, body punched. He was screaming, crying, and begging. Cicinelli decided to use his taser as an impact weapon on Kelly's face. It's made of hard, impact-resistant plastic material, so it's virtually unbreakable. Cicinelli jumped on the dog pile on top of Kelly, who was on his back, and pinned to the ground. You can see in this picture, Defendant Ramos is here at Kelly's feet, and he's holding him down by his legs area. This is Officer Wolf, who's on top of Kelly Thomas, holding him down. This is Officer Hampton up here, who's standing, and you can see Defendant Cicinelli. And note, this is Defendant Cicinelli's arm. And it's hard to see it in that picture, but he has a taser in his hand. You can see he's holding that taser up. He's getting his arm up there high so he can take a real blow down onto Kelly Thomas's face. Now Kelly Thomas is on the ground. He's pinned to the ground. He's face up. The back of his head is on the pavement. And so there's no give there. Cicinelli repeatedly pummeled Kelly in the face without mercy. In his own words, Cicinelli said that he smashed his face to hell. Kelly didn't really last very long after that. He continued to cry out for his dad to help. He pleaded for mercy. He kept crying that he couldn't breathe. The officers continued to press their weight on Kelly's lungs and push him into the pavement and hog tie him. Ramos continued to hold on to Kelly's legs, not letting him get any leverage, not letting him have the opportunity to possibly squirm out or something like that. You can see here Officer Ramos holding on to Kelly. But This is Officer Cicinelli up here, leaning on the car. This is a patrol car. Defendant Cicinelli is leaning on this patrol car, using it as leverage so he can put the weight of his body on Kelly Thomas. Other officers continued to arrive throughout the ordeal, and you can see here, count 6 officers. So by the time Kelly stopped moving, there were 6 officers there. Now, at no time during this entire ordeal did Manuel Ramos ever say to anyone, ever say to the other officers, that maybe Kelly had had enough. So while Kelly was being hogtied, Ramos remarked, "There's fucking blood everywhere." Kelly was crying, "Dad, help me. Dad, help me." He asked God for help. He said, "God, help me, please." The officers were conversing with each other about completing the hogtie, while Kelly was saying, "I can't breathe. Oh, ow, sir, I can't breathe. Ow, ow." His last words were, "Dad, they're killing me, Dad. They're killing me. Dad, Dad." And he started saying, "Daddy, Daddy." You'll hear his voice drop to this deep, low groan as he just barely pushes out the words, "Daddy, Daddy." The officers were talking amongst themselves during this time and weren't showing any concern for Kelly's welfare. Kelly fell unconscious and would never recover. The paramedics arrived while the officers were standing around talking. The paramedics saw that Kelly was not conscious, and his breathing was described as agonal, meaning near death. Some of the officers took the opportunity to show the paramedics their bumps and scratches. Here's what some of that looked like. You can see Officer Ramos had a abrasion on his elbow there. And he had another abrasion on his knee that didn't bleed or anything, but it's a little abrasion. You can see it there. And Officer Wolf had some kind of a little broken skin area on one of his thumbs. So the paramedics then got Kelly Thomas into the ambulance. When they got them into the ambulance, excuse me, this is the scene that they left. That you can see Kelly Thomas's blood there at that particular location. So the paramedics then took Kelly to the closest hospital, which was St. Jude's. They took him there to get his air passage cleared of any obstacles or blood that was there, and a breathing tube was inserted into his throat at St. Jude's. Then they took him to UCI Trauma Center for further treatment. Kelly remained in an unconscious state. So he was treated at UCI Trauma Center, but he was pronounced dead 5 days later. He died from a lack of oxygen supply to his brain. His body needed more oxygen because of the beating, but his breathing was restricted because of the weight of the officers, and also because of the blood running down his nose and his mouth and his throat. It all added up to more than his body could withstand. A sample of Kelly's blood was taken at the hospital for testing. The blood tests were negative. There was no evidence of any alcohol or drugs in his system. We'll be offering testimony from the doctor who treated Kelly as well as the autopsy surgeon. They'll explain how Kelly died from a multitude of injuries, all these injuries that he suffered there at this beating. And they'll explain how the combination of these injuries all were so traumatic they resulted in the death of Kelly Thomas. So there's just one more item of evidence that I wanted to like to bring to your attention. and it's important. After the incident, when Kelly was being taken off in the ambulance, the police were trying to identify who this person was. You'll hear the radio communications, and you'll hear the radio communication of Corporal Ema, making radio contact with the dispatcher at the Fullerton Police Department. He's attempting to identify who the person was who just had this encounter with the police. So he asked the dispatcher to try the name John Noble. Corporal Ema said that he had taken that name from an envelope, probably from the backpack. That name was ruled out because of his 1949 birthday. Kelly was clearly a lot younger than that. Then, as you continue to listen to the radio, to the dispatch, discussions between the dispatcher and other officers, Officer Ramos contacts the dispatcher. You can hear him coming over the radio saying, "Can you try Kelly Thomas? He's about 40. He has an AKA in Placentia." In a few seconds, the dispatcher responded, "Firm on Kelly Thomas in RMS." RMS is their record management system. April 5th, 74, referring to his birthday. Shows grandma lives in Placentia and he's homeless. Ramos said, 10-4, and that's him. The dispatcher responded 10-4. So it was Manuel Ramos, the person who claimed to be unable to confirm who Kelly was, who made the identification of Kelly in the space of what? A few seconds. So when all is said and done, ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will have made it abundantly clear and far beyond any reasonable doubt that the conduct of these two officers who are on trial here went far beyond anything that's acceptable in a free society. Defendant Ramos is guilty of the murder of Kelly Thomas, and Defendant Cicinelli is guilty of manslaughter. Thank you.
We're in recess to not discuss this case.